Hi guys, so I'm here to talk about the first two parts of Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson for the Reblog Book Club. As I mentioned in the first video I put up just announcing that I was taking part in the book club, this is a fictionalized memoir that's written in poetry form, which is something that I've never really experienced before other than studying like the Odyssey in high school and studying Shakespeare. I've never read a story that was told in this form before, so I have to admit that starting right off, it took me a little bit just to get used to the style and just to figure out the right way for me to read the book. I could tell in the beginning of the book that I was sort of rushing through the story, or at least rushing through the different chapters. In case you haven't started yet, the chapters are broken up into like poetry, like each chapter is a poem. There's a title and then there's like a little story that's told, and so I could tell that I was kind of just like rushing through it or reading it faster than I needed to, or reading it faster than for me personally in order to really comprehend what was going on. When stories are told in this lyrical style, you know, it's better to slow down a little bit and it's better to really look at the wordplay that's happening, look at the imagery and the metaphors that are happening, because there's going to be a lot more of it. At least I feel like there will be a lot more of it in this than there would in maybe another book that's written in like prose. Once I realized that, I decided to really slow down and I could find myself really getting immersed in the story. Like individually they could all be read as like single standalone poems, but then when you put them all together you're getting this sort of like comprehensive history into this family's life and just the way that they function and the things that they had to deal with. One of the things that I'm finding really interesting about reading this book is that Jacqueline Woodson was born in the 1960s, and she was born in Ohio, so she's born right in the middle of the civil rights movement. She lives in Ohio for a little bit and then she moves to South Carolina, I believe. She moves to a southern state. I believe it's South Carolina. It looks like she's going to be moving to New York for the second half of the story, or for at least part of the second half of the story. And so I'm really interested in seeing the contrast. You don't really see a lot of description about Ohio except what comes through her father's words, but I feel like the contrast between the South during this time and New York during this time will be really interesting, especially now that I've read Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson and I know about the whole Black migration a little bit more, and just about the idea that a lot of people had that the North would be a lot more free and independent, and how while it was in certain senses, it really wasn't. There was still a significant amount of racism and prejudice that they had to deal with, and you know, that Black people still have to deal with today. So far, I'm really loving this book a lot. I think my favorite poems are the ones that are kind of like short and punchy and just really like hit you in the gut. I posted one on Tumblr and Instagram a couple days ago and it just was like I loved it so much. The way it was constructed, the story and the depth behind it, even though it was only like 7 lines maybe, like, oh, it was so good. It's so good. I'm really enjoying this book a lot and I'm very excited to keep going. And part of me is a little bit sad that this is kind of like a shorter run for the Reblog Book Club. Like, this isn't a really long book, so it doesn't really matter, or it doesn't really make sense for it to be like a really long month-long run of the book club, but part of me kind of wants this to be a longer book because I know I'm gonna finish this and want more. So as you can see, I've been tabbing off some of my favorite poems or chapters in this book, and so I wanted to read one really quickly so you guys can get a taste of the story if you aren't reading along yet. But this one might be my favorite. It's one of my favorites. It's a little bit longer. It's about a page and a little bit more, but I just really like this story a lot. The chapter's called The Fabric Store. Some Fridays we walk downtown Greenville where there are some clothing stores, some restaurants, a motel, and the Five and Dime store, but my grandmother won't take us into any of those places anymore. Even the Five and Dime, which isn't segregated now, but where a woman is paid, my mother says, to follow colored people around in case they try to steal something. We don't go into the restaurants because they always seat us near the kitchen. When we go downtown, we go to the fabric store where the white woman knows my grandmother from back in Anderson, asks, "How's Gunner doing and your girls in New York?" She rolls fabric out for my grandmother to rub between her fingers. They discuss drape and nap and where to cinch the waist in a skirt for a girl. At the fabric store, we are not colored or Negro. We are not thieves or shameful or something to be hidden away. At the fabric store, we're just people. So yeah, those are just my quick thoughts on Brown Girl Dreaming. I'm very excited to keep going with this story. If you're reading along, feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought of the book so far, you know, which chapters or poems are your favorite. And if you haven't picked this up yet, I highly recommend it. Like, I feel like this is going to be for sure on like my top books of the year list, and I'm very excited that this is picked for the Reblog Book Club because I'm not sure if I would have picked it up otherwise. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Bye guys.